Hello and welcome to Don't Ask When. This is episode number 5, and we're talking logistics and we're going to answer some of your questions. But first, a quick update. In the last quarter of 2018, we shipped a small sample of units that had limited functionality. These are the same units we showed in an earlier update that showed a small white square in a lens. This quarter, we will be shipping out an updated version of that using our California supplier base. These will also show the same white square in the lens, but these will feature more metal content as a part of their construction. An upcoming video will show the laser cutting process for these samples. We have a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, from our original design manufacturer, also known as an ODM. For reference, an MOU is a document that outlines, details, and goes over each party's responsibilities in an agreement. An ODM, by the way, is just another word for a company that makes products sold under another company's name. So again, we're not going to be manufacturing these. We're putting that solely in the hands of someone, or in this case, a very large multi-billion-dollar company that makes products for Google, Apple, Amazon, things like that. I'm bringing up this MOU to show our followers the steps needed to get a product to market responsibly. Back in our early days, for those of you guys remember, we made several attempts to make this on our own and make this with our own supplier base, but we quickly found that it wasn't going to be a product that we wanted to stand behind, and we really wanted to make sure that we didn't end up like a lot of companies you see where they promise you something, they get you something a little late, but it's actually just a hunk of junk. Additionally, our OEM will be responsible for DVT, EVT, which stands for Design Validation Testing, Engineering Verification Testing, as well as pilot production and logistics. We'll go over what EVT, DVT, and pilot production means in a future video, but we're just going to go through this really quickly. But this also means that once we go into this next phase with this company, we'll have 5 people, 5 really experienced people dedicated to this task over in Shanghai. Next, the company will be putting about an additional $3 million into manufacturing development to finish the product and get it shipped out to you. This will take us approximately 12 months from start to finish to achieve this. We think that 12 months is going to be on the high end, so it may be less than that. Don't panic, this is not a 12-month delay for those of you who have pre-orders to get quote-unquote something from LaForge. Throughout this 12-month period, we're going to be shipping between 500 and 1,000 pre-production units. We, of course, have to scale up to that. And again, the purpose of these units, these are going to be basically, the last tiptoe of the alphas that we're shipping out, but also these are mostly going to be betas. So when I say the last tiptoes, this is just really reinforcing some things I stated last year. These are the ones that are just going to be showing the white screen, and then some of these will just be showing a full color screen, but all the features won't be there. Some of these will be available with a software update. Others of these would just simply be replaced with a more advanced unit free of charge. Again, this is not the way that other startup companies or other companies in general tend to work. They like to keep things close to home, but us, we're a huge fans here of being honest and diligent with what we're doing and keeping most things out in the open. There's some things that you'll find out later on in this update that we just can't tell people because other companies are watching us to scout ideas. Some of these units will be similar to what's going out in March and April, but they'll just be built by their ODM and not us. So this is mostly going to be done just to verify some things, verify understanding on their part. Hey, this is the best we could do with our resources here in Southern California and some of our extended resources in Asia and Southeast Asia. But we want to see what their quality's like, what their price point's about. We're basically making things to foster design understanding. This is really huge when you're a company that's working with not only a company that's significantly larger than yours, but when you're a company like LaForge where you're working with dozens of different suppliers. The key to a lot of these prototypes as we start to tiptoe to production is just making sure that people have the correct understanding. And what I really want people to really get here is that half of the battle up to this point has been getting our suppliers and partners to understand what it is we're doing. We go to a company bigger than us, we say smart glasses. That means about 5 different things to 5 different companies. Google says they're doing smart glasses. Really, theirs is, that thing. You know, some people consider what Microsoft and Magic Leap to be doing to be smart glasses. Some people consider it to be something totally different. So when we say these things, we have to make sure that we're working the same page, and this takes time. This is a huge part of what we were doing over the last 2 quarters to basically make sure that we're communicating with people, our internal and external partners, as precisely as possible. And again, some of this stuff gets a little funny sometimes in the sense of we actually have a glossary with pictures that we attach so people know what these things mean. So things that are common in the eyewear industry may not be so common in the consumer electronics industry and vice versa. So it takes some time to foster understanding. This 12-month push to production has not started yet, as we have a few more documents to sign. All right. And additionally to that, when it comes to suppliers, we've been shuffling suppliers in and out of this product for about a year. We're mostly through that. There was a surprising one that I cannot mention for fear of some sort of random retribution in terms of pricing on something else we want from them. But these things are things that are very important to us. We're basically favoring suppliers who have better technology slash, those who have demonstrated an eagerness to work with us. Again, a lot of our followers think that what we're doing is the best thing since the original Apple computer. Whereas bigger companies look at us and say, who the hell are you? What the hell is this? And it takes some time to make believers out of these folks. This is a huge reason why you hear a lot about companies who make products and as vaporware is it sounds great, but there's some issue. And for a lot of companies on the vaporware side, it's really that they've overpromised on the technology part. Now, have we overpromised at LaForge? Yeah. On ship dates, not on the technology part. And so with us, we're being very, very cautious to not go into that vaporware category. And I know we got some haters out there. So for those of you guys who think we're in the vaporware category, keep hating, keep waiting, and we'll eventually prove you wrong. So next, let's just skip on. The next one here, when it comes to operating system, we had to make an additional change due to chipset changes and performance concerns that we had. And again, a lot of this has been a result of us working with this really great ODM. And again, once we get a little bit further down the road, maybe a month or so down the road, we'll actually tell you guys who you are. You might be pleasantly surprised when you hear this company. What we're doing with this, with the operating system, is we're going to have what I basically call a shotgun wedding of Linux and Android. And since Linux and Android are related, let's just call it a West Virginia shotgun wedding, right? Let's do that. So previously, we were going to take part of Android and strip it down, and then we were going to just merely add in some additional features. Now we're going to start with Linux and then add some features from Android, as well as have an additional, let's call it layer or software considerations for security. And this is based on consultations with a company that we're going to be doing some software development with, as well as folks that we're bringing on to develop this. And also on top of that, part of this stuff is going to be done by our new manufacturing partner as well. This goes to the next change, which is the processor. We've been given access to a wider variety of components. Previously, we're going to use a ST Micro STM32 F7 class running at a little over 200 megahertz. That's a lot of alphabet soup, ST Micro, STM32 F7. But basically what it is, it was a chip that's more so made for smartwatches and things like that. Now we're going to something a bit more powerful. We're going to be using a chip made by a company called HiSilicon. And HiSilicon is actually a subsidiary of the Chinese smartphone maker Huawei. And we're doing this because we're going to have increased performance of around 800 megahertz. All right, so going to the next update, this is definitely a huge power increase, particularly for a platform as small as ours, with a battery as small as ours. But in most cases, most use cases, the eyewear will be using significantly less power, let's say 1/10 that amount. And the reason why we're doing this is we want to have the capability for not only us at LaForge to develop some really cool tools for third-party developers, but also for those third-party developers to be able to piggyback or layer on top of what we're doing really awesome software applications in the forms of mods. So this is really going to be used to power relatively short task like, object recognition. And this is going to be something that this company is going to basically become a leader in, is not necessarily object recognition, but quote unquote lightweight object recognition. So we're going to be having to look at a lot of pixels to figure out what these things are looking at, so we can give you these really cool overlays. But we're not going to be doing it in a conventional sense of throwing every possible sensor at it. With this project, I look at a lot of things and we base it off of how the human brain works, or how an animal would work. That's our sort of metaphor. So based on that, we're not going to be, we're going to be downsampling things. We're not necessarily going to be, doing dot projection with, infrared or some other wavelength to start to doing things. We're going to take a look at really doing really good, um, you know, analysis of the images we're getting to make this really cool, lightweight, simple thing that doesn't chew up the battery, so to speak. Which gets us to the final part of this update, which is the camera. We've got some really cool stuff around the camera that I cannot tell you. And the reason why I can't tell you what it is that we're going to be doing with the camera is because we've confirmed that our competitors watch these updates. And when it gets into, what this camera does, the way it takes in light and transforms it, we want to be the first ones out there with that. Okay? But what I can say is this: we've upgraded the camera to be 5 megapixels. Previously, we were at 2 megapixels. We were using one of the smallest camera sets available for a smartphone, and so with that, it had really, really small pixels too. We were really trying to hold the line on form factor, so it's not this thing hanging out. And by the way, it's not, when I say camera, you're not going to be able to tell where the camera is. You literally cannot point at the camera sensor and find it on the eyewear. We already have that confirmed. We made some prototypes of this last year very crudely, and but we can tell you that, I'm just going to make it very clear, this is not going to be like a Snapchat thing where there's a big circle on the side and it lights up or something like that. It's not going to be like Pivot Head where the camera's sitting in the middle. You will not be able to tell this camera is. It's really cool stuff. And again, I want to tell you more, but it's going to have to be something that we're just going to have to wait on. Okay, but also with us jumping up to 5 megapixels, we have more pixels, but the pixels are actually larger than what we were using previously. So for those of you camera heads out there, you know that the larger the pixels are on the image sensor, the more light that gets into that particular pixel, and the more light that reaches that pixel, the better your algorithm, the better that your camera driver can be at determining the correct color profile for that particular given set of space. So basically, the more light you let in, the better software can handle that. So that's something we're going to do. It also has an additional technology that's going to be really great at low light performance. We're going to be doing some really interesting things and in low light situations, and we'll get into that at a much later date. So what I'm going to do here is show you guys a quick sort of 360 of where we're at with this build. This is just one frame style that we're doing. This is going to be one of not 2 or 3 frame styles. This is going to be one of about a dozen frame styles that we're getting ready to produce here. So we've made a lot of changes and improvements to this in the sort of preparations to get this thing into production. The other thing with this camera that's very key is this camera is not going to be voice activated. None of this stuff where it's like, okay, glass, take a picture. All right. I've never seen someone, when they want to take a picture, they literally yell out, hey, I want to take a picture. Most people just go over and take a picture. But there's also going to be another way to take pictures, but we're not going to talk about that in this announcement. So that's all I can tell you about that. We'll make an announcement to those existing pre-order customers who want to test an early version of these camera samples once they're ready. All right. So that's basically it for the updates. And finally, for those of you who have stuck with us this long, this will look like progress. For those of you who are skeptical, we invite you to come up with conspiracy theories in the comment section, or just hit the like button if you're in a hurry. All right, let's get into questions. So our first one is via email from who I think is David. I say I think because there was no name on it, but I do think it correlates to someone else who was asking how to ask a question on Facebook. So we're going to put maybe David. So here we go, via email. Are there any plans to consolidate the channels that LaForge uses to communicate? I understand and love that LaForge keeps trying new ways to establish dialogue, but there seems to be far too many avenues right now for me to keep track of. I can only imagine how stressful it must be on your end. David. So first of all, thanks for this question. I want to to give a little bit of context. This question is one of the older ones that we just sort of kept in our queue. So since this has been written, we've actually have consolidated these things down. And though there are many places to find these video updates, in general, it's going to be the same content on all of those things. So if we do a video update, it's on Facebook, it's going to be on YouTube, and it's also going to be on the company blog as well. Originally, it was not that way. We were trying out a bunch of different things, and we're cutting out things that that do not work out. Also, we are going to be doing, I know I'm guilty for saying this a lot, but look, this is episode number 5. There's going to be a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however many we need to do. But these things do take time, but I do prefer doing these over writing out the emails like I used to. We just started doing this last year because based on the emails, based on the emails that we were getting, it was pretty clear to me that people weren't actually reading the updates. So we made it something that's super easy for you guys. So let's go on to the next question now. This one's also from David. It says, in LaForge's long-term vision, will social flow be overseen separately from Shima? In other words, is LaForge looking to get to a place where social flow can encourage developers and showcase content regardless of what the hardware's current status is? David. So the answer to this one is yes. When we first started working on this project, the big focus was getting the lens tech done and figured out. That's what most of the money, that's what most of the time has gone to with this project. For those of you guys who follow this, you know this pretty well. And now that we're in a comfortable space with that, we've been moving on into talks with larger companies about hardware development. And during that, we did put software development on a pause. That being stated, in the future, yes, the software development and the hardware development are going to be going down 2 separate tracks, but let's just say for the remainder of the year as we go into beta and pre-production, pilot production, and of course full production over the next 13, 14 months or so, you're going to be able to see that we did put those two in the same development track, and it's just because we're working under a very condensed timeline. We're talking about FCC approvals, we're talking about IP67, IP68 kind of intrusion ratings. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the software piece. No, on the FCC side, a little bit. But again, as it goes forward, we are using social flow to showcase developer content as well. We're not going to be doing everything. That's a long answer, so let me just move on. The next email is from Chad. Hi, given the legal complications around being able to connect a display to a smartwatch data connection, will Wi-Fi connectivity be an option or strictly BLE to a smartphone? And by BLE, he means Bluetooth Low Energy. So the answer to this is yes. But before I get into a little bit more detail on that, I want to provide some context about what he's saying. So Chad has clearly been watching what we've been doing very closely. But basically, yes, we did in mid to late 2017 get a sort of legal notice in the mail and a couple other places, and even a really strange phone call one time. But basically, it was from someone who had said that, hey, we're doing something in smart glasses, and you got we meaning LaForge is doing something in smart glasses, and it's pairing to a smartphone, and it's also going to be pairing to a smartwatch. And the deal with this is that at no time have we ever stated that this was going to be pairing with a smartwatch. We have no plans to do that, and we never had done that. But this is basically what's known as a patent troll had contacted us about these things. And, not the best strategy to let people know what you're going to sue them for before they've done it. So clearly we're not doing that. So Yes, we're going to be Wi-Fi. It's going to be Wi-Fi connectivity as an option, but there also will be Bluetooth there as well. I do want to point out that it's either or, and that's going to be up to you, the end user. And the reason why we're doing that is because different people have different needs, and we're going to be playing a little marketing game. And what I mean by that is we're going to be saying that we're having all day battery life, but what that means to one person and what it means to a second person may be two completely different things. So what we're saying is for those who want more performance out of the eyewear, Wi-Fi is going to be your best bet. For those who want more battery life battery life out of these, you're going to want to do Bluetooth LE. So it'll just be an option that we have within Social Flow to configure the eyewear to where, hey, you can get this or that. So it's the same thing as like a lot of cars have an econ button or a green leaf button. Some people want more range, some people want more power. We're going to leave that up to you guys. Next email. Hi Corey, I heard you mention that you're planning on featuring integrated voice into the glasses. I heard some examples like Alexa, Google, and Microsoft. My question is, how will these glasses interact with the iPhone? I know that the plan is to build a set of AR wear that can be used on just about any platform, but will I lose functionality if I have an iPhone instead of a Google phone or a Microsoft phone? I see that a lot these days with devices that favor one platform over another. I guess my question is, will I be able to use all the features of the device if I have an iPhone? So the answer to this question is yes with an asterisk. We're going to be targeting core functionality with these first. So in terms of being able to take pictures with some of these, be able to enable computer vision, voice assistance, things like that. Yes, the way we go about doing that on iOS versus Android will be different. As everyone, well, I won't say everyone, is a lot of people know. Android's open and open source, whereas Apple is open in air quotes, I guess, but a closed source software system. So we have to abide by their rules. It doesn't mean there are ways that aren't ways that we can work around some of those. A lot of times it's just your software development strategy. We may need to use more webhooks or do certain calls or push things to the cloud and do stuff externally and push it back through a device via an app in a way that Apple finds, acceptable. But the deal is, the way I look at it is, the more of these devices we get out there, that actually gives us stronger footing when we do approach Apple. And again, even though we're a tiny company, bigger companies do talk to us to figure out what we're doing, and we talk to them to ask permission for things. It's not new. Like we talked about a couple years ago, Qualcomm, Facebook, relatively recently. And these are just going to be things that I would say are in the category of growing pains, and things that what we're going to do is just say, hey, look, we've got developers who are already on your ecosystem. They already have third-party apps. Their user base wants to enable some of these really cool features. But to make a long story short, Apple doesn't have the best history of allowing for multi-app conversion. That's something that's relatively new, and this is going to be pushing them a bit more in that direction, assuming we get enough of a user base. Also, definitely want to say shout out to the last 3 people using a Microsoft phone. I had a Windows phone not that long ago, and I'm just glad to know there's still dozens of us out there that are still using, the Windows phone. The last one is this. This is via text message from Roland. Roland's one of our pre-order customers. We talk from time to time. So it says here, after looking over the schematics, does LaForge have the ability to update the software or operating system over the air? The answer to this is yes. And the real reason for this is, one, I think it's just very interesting to, you wake up and your glasses are one way. You go to sleep, your glasses are one way, you wake up, they're a different way, and it's going to be very similar to how it is on Tesla. Whatever it is that we start with, we're going to be making a series of improvements like a lot of other companies do. Some of them will be UI improvements. Some of them will be performance improvements. They may be new features or things like that. And the ability to do that over the air is really cool. The ability to do that to where, hey, I want to just run this software update while I'm reading, a magazine. The glass will shut down, cycle through, and, you're doing whatever. So we definitely want to have that. It'll be done more than likely over Wi-Fi. Doing some of that stuff over Bluetooth may be really time consuming. And of course, there will still be a way to do it over USB Type C. Speaking to our ODM, our manufacturer, uh, based out of Shanghai, they actually have a preference for over-the-air updates, and I'm actually uh, pretty much the only person fighting for still keeping aux to be not aux USB to be used for data and not just power. So whether I want it or not, we're going to be getting over-the-air updates. That's just how far along things are. And that concludes it for today. Unfortunately, there was no one brave enough to call in. We'd like to hear you guys' voice, ask any questions. They can be fun, they can be serious, but we're just here to make ourselves available to you guys. And we'll be back in much less time. We're not going to wait another 3 months for the next update. I think sometimes people got to remember if we do something in October, November, hard to do for holidays, and so is December. And then the new year is talking about new business. So thanks again, and we do appreciate you all's continued support. Thank you. Bye. The long and the short over the too long didn't watch is we did ship out a small number of samples in the last 3 months of 2018. The next one here is that we're shipping out an updated version of that using our California supplier base. Um, After that, we have a memorandum of understanding from our manufacturer, and this is really huge. So this manufacturer makes products for Google, Amazon, etc. Let's see here. The company, we're going to be putting an additional $3 million just into manufacturing development. There's more money that we're going to be putting into it this year. This is not from a sort of crowdfunding sort of thing, but I can't get into how we're raising that money for legal reasons. Don't want it to make this appear like this is a public offering. I don't want to make this look like this is a solicitation to get funding from the public because we don't want to get in trouble with the SEC, hashtag Elon Musk. The next one here is yes, this will take about 12 months to get it into full production. However, significantly prior to that, we'll be shipping out beta units, not alpha units, beta units, to the tune of 500 to 1,000 of those units, noting that we have approximately, I think it's 500 or 600 pre-orders right now. We're not taking any more pre-orders at all, by the way. Once you're ready to order, you can do that. Or sorry, once we're ready to ship, then you can order is what I meant to say. Let me see here. Oh yeah, we changed the chipset due to, or sorry, let's take this back. Previously, it was just going to be a stripped down version of Android. Now it is, what I call a West Virginia wedding of Linux and Android with particular or extra considerations for security. Let's see here. We changed the processor. We're going from max 200 to over 800 megahertz. The 800 megahertz is not what it's going to be running at most of the time. The extra horsepower or the extra processing power, let's just put it that way, is going to be used for high performance functions such as object recognition. There's a camera version of eyewear that we are producing. Anyone who has an existing pre-order will get an email about when they can get those samples for free. The camera resolution across the board is being increased from 2 megapixels to 5 megapixel with special operations for low light situations.